Had it up today, the coach had to make up numbers in a squad depleted by rep duty and injury. However, Michael Hagan won't be packing his boots for Canberra. While hopeful, he's prepared if none of his Kangaroo players don't either after tonight's test.
Preparing as though we won't have them back. So we've made some allowances to make sure we've got 17 ready to go if that's the case.
Hagan knows all about Raiders centre Rod Jensen, given his time as First Division coach in Canberra. The speedy back comes into the Green Machine side for Sunday's match, but he doesn't think the Knights will be weakened by the test.
They're working around it and they're coming up with the goods week in, week out, so I don't think it'll make too much difference for them.
As much as they'd like to have kept him at Energy Australia Stadium, John Morris will leave for the Eels at season's end. On Sunday, though, he's still assured plenty of game time in the red and blue.
You know, there could be 4 or 5 changes if they're out, so, you know, we've did a bit of ball work today just to try and get used to the different combinations. But, you know, through the origin period, we're right to go now. We're used to Joey and that not being there.
The halfback did kick Newcastle to its only win in the nation's capital last season, but given all the problems this week, making it 2 in a row will be a big ask.
It's probably the best time of the year for them and the worst time of the year for us. So.
Crews worked overnight trying to restore the state's Northern Rail line, finally reopening one of the lines today. The focus now on just how yesterday's accident could have happened in the first place. After the coal train derailed, it's believed the driver alerted all train drivers in the area.
We would hope that the radio system is robust enough that all the drivers in the area would have heard that emergency call.
But that unfortunately didn't happen, and 9 minutes later, a passenger train sideswiped the wagons and also came off the tracks.
There was 9 minutes to stop that second train. The government failed.
One of the recommendations from the Glenbrook inquiry was that all trains must have compatible communication systems.
And I would hope that if all those systems are in place, then we would have been able to prevent any kind of accident occurring at all.
The state's entire fleet of passenger trains will have its radio system upgrade completed. The overhaul will take 2 months and cost $6 million.
The radios had to be purpose-built, effectively from the ground up, and it's only now, in fact last month, that they've been able to be installed.
Meanwhile, the derailment has also disrupted coal haulage from the Hunter Valley. But despite the transport interruptions, Port Waratah Coal Services says so far it hasn't affected coal shipments out of Newcastle. All rail lines are due to reopen on Monday. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. The sights and scenery of Newcastle was captured from almost every angle today. 167 teams were out and about filming scenes for this year's Shootout Film Festival.
They're all short films, they're all under 7 minutes and all made with no editing, all in camera and in 24 hours.
But despite the demanding deadline, all actors and even directors remain surprisingly calm. And from drama to documentaries, almost every genre is covered.
The aim is to give young filmmakers an opportunity to actually get their work seen. So it's to give them a launching pad, if you will, into the bigger industry and maybe to Hollywood, who knows.
And you can catch a glimpse of the top 10 entries from the festival. A screening will be held at 6:30 tomorrow night at Panthers Club Nova. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
This is the view from the cockpit of an Australian FA-18 fighter jet involved in exercise Pitch Black. The valleys of northern New South Wales are proving a testing ground for pilots from both the Singaporean and Australian Air Forces. 57 jets and almost 1,000 personnel are involved in the 2-week operation, with a focus on defending cities and towns as well as our expansive borders.
Williamtown is the air defence side of the exercise. That is, it's our job from Williamtown to detect the threats and then launch the fighters and have the fighters intercept the threats and hopefully turn them around.
The excitement has attracted a steady stream of onlookers to the Williamtown base, keen to catch a glimpse of the Hornet fighters and the Hawk fighter trainers.
There's power, there's noise, there's excitement. It's just wonderful.
Further north, the headland at Bonny Hills near Laurelton has been taken over by Air Force personnel from Darwin, who've established a field radar base to monitor the exercise. The airmen from Singapore are based at Amberley near Brisbane with their F-16 and F-5 fighter jets. F-111s, Caribous and Hercules are also playing vital roles, and perhaps unlike wartime, there's always a moment to stop and admire the view. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
These students could be the doctors of the future, and today they were given a preview of what life could be like for them. Not only were they given a tour of John Hunter Hospital, they were also experiencing life as a uni student.
They spend 1.5 days at New South Wales University and then 1.5 days at Newcastle and then back to Sydney University. We show them parts of the university campus as well as hospital life.
It's hoped programs like this will go some of the way in alleviating the current crisis in luring health professionals to regional areas.
We're encouraging rural students to undertake a medicine or health science course and hopefully practice in a rural area when they graduate.
For 16-year-old Frances Jamieson, who comes from Broken Hill, the program is a chance to find out exactly what she wants to do with her life.
I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, so I thought that maybe coming on this might give me some ideas, maybe confirm the optometry thing, and it has, so that's good.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News. For people living with type 1 diabetes, insulin injections are part of daily life. But for many sufferers, achieving the correct blood sugar levels is all trial and error, often involving numerous finger prick tests throughout the day. Now researchers are trying to come up with a test to better predict insulin requirements in diabetics.
We're going to look at how the body's able to use glucose, and we hope that what this will actually do is help us in managing people who already have diabetes.
A grant of $32,000 has enabled Dr. Bruce King to start a pilot program examining ways to make managing diabetes easier.
What we're going to try and do is develop a test that we can do off the finger pricks that children already do, and by using the blood from these finger pricks, we'll be able to look at how the cells, or a marker of how the cells metabolise the glucose.
Diabetes is the fastest growing chronic disease in Australia, and yet mystery still surrounds its causes and triggers. In the Hunter alone, the incidence has increased by 500% in just 10 years.
We really don't know at the moment whether it's got anything to do with viruses which are going around the Hunter, and I think that is probably a likely suspect, but at this point in time we've got no evidence for that.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Public concern about the Australian radiata proposal was raised by a local delegation that met today in Sydney with Planning Minister Andrew Refshaugi. Dr Refshaugi is the approval authority for the development. The delegation wants Water Police and Coastal Patrol concerns about the danger of buoys and ropes from the farming operation to be taken into account when the minister makes his decision.
Having shouldered club, state and national responsibilities in recent weeks, Andrew Johns has almost run off his feet. But while he could be forgiven for taking a week off with only the lowly Penrith ahead and the Bulldogs around the corner, the Knights captain has other priorities.
First and foremost, I've got to play halfback, I suppose, and play well. And then the leadership comes into it. But as I pointed out, we've got a young side, a couple of blokes making their debut, so it's important that I play a major role on Sunday, and hopefully I'll be doing that.
It's an attitude that continues to impress Michael Hagan, if only other positions were so easy to fill. The absence of Mark Hughes, for one, continues to give the coach plenty to ponder.
Have a look at Justin Ryder, Johnny Morris in that spot. Anthony Quinn's in the centres at this point, and we'll probably make that decision tomorrow at this stage. I need to just check on Josh Smith too, who's had a virus, to see how he is.
As for Hughes, he must be wondering what he's done wrong in a year in which he can now add an ankle to a long list of health worries.
I've had a good run over the years, and I guess this year I've had a little bit of bad luck here and there, and I suppose I'll just have to miss a few weeks.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
There's no doubt that this sandy beach next to the Nelson Bay Marina is a small slice of the blue water wonderland that the bay's lucrative tourist industry has been built on. But Port Stephens council officers would prefer to fill it in with rocks similar to those used on the nearby breakwall and build a boardwalk on it.
Port Stephens is blessed with many kilometres of pristine sandy beaches, and the loss of 120 or 150 metres of beach is going to be fairly insignificant in the overall area of beach space that's available.
The $1.5 million plan has left many in disbelief.
And you can play cricket, kids can paddle, the boats are separated from the marina component. It is already a recreation area and it doesn't need any more money spent on it.
Well, I couldn't imagine anything more usable than this is at present. I think it's beautiful, lovely, it's natural.
Dave Mullen operates kayaking tours from the beach every day and questions council's motives.
I think they're just hiding from the real part of it, which is that it's become polluted with all the boats in here. It was never put flush pipes in to keep the harbour, the marina area clean.
Council admits it is worried about public liability issues and believes the beach may even be dangerous.
It is a man-made boat harbour, and our concerns are is that with the increase in boat usage and boat movements in and out of the harbour here, the potential for conflict with children and adults swimming in the harbour itself does increase.
The future of this little piece of paradise will be decided by councillors next Tuesday night. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
With the representative season now over, this time of the year is tough on players mentally and physically, especially those who took part in most of the recent rep games. Now, a great example of this is Joey Johns, who played in all this year's representative matches, as well as the World Club Challenge in England before the start of the season. Now, with still 8 weeks to go before the semi-finals, it's a real flat period for the players, so don't be surprised if there's a few upsets this weekend, which will make a big difference to the final makeup of the top 8. Now, if you have a look on the competition ladder here, you'll see that the Storm, Dragons and the Raiders are really the only teams with a chance of cracking the top 8. Now, out of those 3 teams, I think the Dragons are the best chance. They've played the Broncos and the Bulldogs, and although they went down, they look promising. All their players are back from injury or suspension, with the likes of Timmins, Riles and Bailey and Barrett. They're all playing together this weekend, which has been a rare thing for them this season, but I think they've really got a good chance of being there in September. Now, another important match this weekend will be the Sharks-Eagles clash, with the teams on 7th and 8th spot on the ladder. Now, one thing the Sharks will have to overcome is just an amazing statistic against them. Out of the last 29 matches at Brookvale, they've only won on 3 occasions, which is quite amazing. I've tipped the Sharks to win. As for the rest of round 19, I think the Bulldogs, Dragons, Broncos and Raiders can win their matches, along with the Warriors and the Knights. Good luck with your tips. I'll see you next week.
Catherine Hill Bay coal miners will tell you that when you ascend from a shift underground, an ocean view is a luxury that few others in the industry can enjoy. Thousands of miners have shared the view and the workload over the years, but these men are the last. The Moonee Colliery officially closed today, and the remaining miners gathered to farewell each other and reflect on the job they loved.
It's just a shame that the place has got to close. There's coal's still there, and we're not going to get it.
The men say there's still 10 years' life left in the old pit, but the owners believe it's not profitable enough to mine it. Due to market forces, the pit has been closed and reopened twice before.
The difference in the past, of course, was that the place was kept on care and maintenance, so that we were able to reopen it when the markets changed. The difference on this occasion is that all the entries are being sealed off, including Wallarar's entries being sealed off, and what reserves are there will be sterile.
The Wallarar Collier will cease its extended contract next week, with the remaining stockpile of Moonee coal to be carried to the Port of Newcastle by truck. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
They rolled up in their hundreds, local cowboys and even a few Indians mixed with city slickers who came to witness the annual ritual. On the other side of the world, bricks and rolling pins were also being thrown at the towns of Strait in the United States, Britain and Canada. But not everyone was willing to give it a go.
Well, my brother's a bricklayer, so I tend to see what he gets up to. It looks like it could be a bit hard.
Others were there to meet some country people.
Oh, they're just so laid back and they're easygoing and they've got time to talk to you.
An aerobatic performance in the skies showcased some daredevil manoeuvres. And these muscly woodchoppers added to the country flavour. While sprinters lifted the pace, it was the throwing of household items which proved most popular. Last year's international winner, Nikita Quayle, again came up trumps, hurling a rolling pin close to 40 metres.
I just try and throw it as far as I can. There's no real trick, just technique and see how you go.
In the men's section, those built like a brick outhouse proved most effective, especially when they combined their strength with technique. The throw by Ben Harradine won him the men's open section. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Lakes United's Chris Bolt was on the receiving end of a solid tackle in yesterday's game, but after completing the tackle, West's Troy Fletcher got more than he bargained for from Lakes hooker Ian Burke. Bolt left the field, Burke was binned and Fletcher was sent off.
The initial tackle was quite solid and I think that's what did the damage. Me just flopping on top, I don't think did any damage.
After reviewing the tape, Fletcher believes his team was unfairly treated, given the number of high tackles dished up by Lakes, including this one that left West's Troy Wright in hospital with a fractured jaw.
We were all quite surprised at the time that at least wasn't put on report or something like that, just to show every player on the field that if you're going to do that sort of thing, there's going to be consequences for it.
The NRL says there's no room for high tackles in the game.
That's not what the game's about, and obviously we don't want that in the league.
Meantime, over at Central Charlestown, they've launched a book recording the club's 92-year history. The nostalgia trip includes photographs of Central's best-known former player, Clive Churchill.
In the 3 years of the Australian Rugby Shield, New South Wales Country has now made 3 finals, defeating the Perth Gold last time around to claim the prize. Unbeaten this season, it goes without saying that the Western Australians will be looking to settle the score this Saturday.
Well, I guess so, but we'll be certainly going back there to avenge our loss in the first round, which was our only loss in this series. So, we'll have a point to prove.
The Cockatoos certainly proved one at the weekend, humbling arch-rival Queensland Country by 31 points. Several Newcastle players featured heavily, including fullback Nathan Croft. If only Melbourne had beat Perth so that the Hunter could have hosted the decider.
Mate, it would have been great to be in Newcastle for the grand final. We would have had a lot of support, but obviously, Perth coming top of the table, they deserve a home final, and credit to them.
The Cockatoos fly west on Thursday, and while it's no small trip, As a team without a home base, the country boys are used to travelling. In fact, the side seems pretty settled all round, with no changes expected to the weekend squad of 22.
Everybody knows their role, and you know, like even the guys coming off the bench know their involvement. It's a nice, good feel about the squad. Good.
At a ground where the high ball almost requires air traffic clearance. Tugan had a first half it would rather forget. Despite good defence in the opening minutes from both sides, a clever switch from Billy Preston saw the straight running Luke Raywood offload to Luke Anderson for the first of Cudgeon's tries. Strong running from front rower Matt Chadburn kept the pressure on, making room for an elusive run from 5'8" Steve Ashburn to cross for another 4. And the tries kept coming. Steve Ashton scored his second off a Chris Mo's grubber. And likewise for Tom Pritchard, diving on a well-weighted kick from Sean Fathers for a 22-point lead. But from there it was all downhill for Cudgeon. In the 29th minute, desperation football saw Tugan's first points on the board. And some welcome confidence despite heading into the breakdown 22-4. A solid individual performance from Jason Harden started the team's second half on the right foot, giving it the go-forward needed to come back and take out the match 30 points to 22. After 16 rounds, the Seagulls and Southport sit on top of the ladder with 26 points. Tugan close behind with 21, and Bow Desert sits alone in the cellar with just 1 competition point. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Kevin James Lynch is charged with the stabbing murder of 28-year-old Jason Phelps and the malicious wounding of his wife Elizabeth on this property in Frame Drive, Abermain. Phelps and Elizabeth Lynch were in the bedroom of a disused home on the Lynch family property in the early hours of August 12 last year when the 48-year-old allegedly forced a window open and burst into the premises armed with 2 knives. Jason Phelps died at the scene from massive stab wounds to the chest.
Today's hearing began with Kevin Lynch pleading not guilty to murder, but guilty to manslaughter. Prosecutor Wayne Creasy told Justice Anthony Wheely that the Crown wouldn't accept the not guilty plea and asked for the trial to proceed.
The court heard the attack happened after the Lynches and a group of friends, including Jason Phelps, had a barbecue at the property. It continued into the night at a local hotel before returning to the disused home. Crown Prosecutor Wayne Creasy today told the jury it would be alleged Lynch told police that he stabbed Phelps because the younger man was sleeping with his wife. Defence counsel Dennis Stewart will, however, argue Lynch was provoked. He told jurors there were a number of events on the night that had caused his client grave humiliation. The trial continues tomorrow. Gary Blair, NBN News.
It's distance education at its most advanced. If you can't be somewhere in person, this video conference centre is the next best thing to being in the same room.
Students remotely can interact with their peers and with their lecturers and see and talk and experience learning in a better way.
With the push to have more doctors working in rural areas, it's also essential they gain undergraduate experience. This centre provides a link between the Tamworth-based University Department of Rural Health and the University of Newcastle. At a cost of less than $150,000, it not only allows for interactive learning, it also reduces travel times and is reliable.
What's happening now with video conferencing, it's become stable, reliable, and now third, it's become empowering.
Video conferencing will also be utilised at the university's Central Coast campus. This semester it will be used for students studying medicine and occupational therapy, but there's plans to use it for all courses in the future.
And we're hoping that it minimises that and makes us more productive and brings us closer together in many ways.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Every weekend, thousands of Australians hit the sporting fields in the name of competition and a good time. But in the last 18 months, insurance premiums have in some extreme cases increased by 300%.
I think people have become more aware of the ability to sue, particularly in this country over the last 5 or 6 years. So therefore there's now a focus on it.
And people who are injured today want some sort of recompense for it. That's fair enough. But in order to see that we don't get more claims than we need to get, risk management's the key issue.
Risk management is the buzzword at a conference being held in the Hunter, looking at ways to best fight ever-increasing premiums and claims. Peter Nash from Sports Cover Insurance Brokers spoke from that industry's perspective, saying that all clubs should appoint a risk manager to look for and fix potential hazards that may result in legal action. But Gary Screen, GM of the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation, which this year will pay $850,000 in premiums, believes a shift in society's way of thinking is a key.
Remember, you have volunteers running most of our organisations, and they're flat out just getting the players on the field or onto the netball court or whatever it might be. They really don't have the time to carry out all the necessary risk management. It's just not possible.
After dressing in the flag and psyching up to his favourite music, Mick Fanning paddled out at Super Tubes and amazed everyone. The incredible 360 helped him score a 9.8 for the wave and first place for the contest. It's only the 21-year-old's first year on the World Championship Tour, the win earning him 55,000 Aussie dollars.
I'm just so stoked. Had 17th all year and just come back and win. Oh, I'm just the happiest kid in the world right now.
Fanning defeated Wollongong's Mick Lowe in second, while Byron Bay's Danny Wills and Coolangatta's Joel Parkinson finished equal third. Both busted some big moves, delighting the South African crowd. But the spectators' true affections were reserved for J-Bay local Sean Holmes and his perfect 10-point ride. Mark Ocalupo dug in to finish fifth. In all, a classic J-Bay day. They were busting plenty of moves at Redhead this morning in the small and slightly onshore conditions. In the first round of the Open Men's Division, Newcastle's Dean O'Neill was out to impress, punching through the lip of this wave, only to be shut down inside a barrel. Sean Peterson from Nora Head entered the green room, but also found a few closeouts.
Got a couple of rolls and backflipping. Mainly just trying to get tubed, I guess. A couple of rolls and spins, trying to do a flip out, but depends on which wave you can pick.
In the juniors, Gavin Brown from Batteau Bay caught the eye of the judges with a few big rides. Avalon's Ewan Donachi got covered up nicely, while Nora Head's John Webber met a crunching fate. Most would like to make a living out of the sport, but know that getting on the Pro Tour can be tough.
You need money to back yourself up. If you can get a good sponsorship, it's all there for you. But for us, the old guys now who's been doing it for a while, it's kind of getting harder these days.
How old are you?
23.
Surfing resumes early tomorrow with the finals to begin around 10 o'clock. The state titles will be held in Wollongong in 4 weeks' time.
Cessnock hasn't beaten Edgeworth since returning to the NBN League in 1990, and it won all early in the first half with shots on offer. Things look promising. The deadlock had the top-placed Eagles, meanwhile, looking shirty, and it wasn't until after the break that they again found a way past an in-form Craig Carter. But a minute later it looked irrelevant, Anthony Richards latching onto a nifty pass to see the Hornets draw level. Their long Edgeworth hoodoo was almost broken soon after, but with one goal already to his name and another needed to reach a milestone 30, Peter Junknowitz wasn't going to be denied. A hat-trick beckoned for the star striker, but it was David Franze who finally took the sting out of the Hornets, Edgeworth winning 4-2.
The community's been calling for a skate park in the area, similar to this one at Raymond Terrace.
For wood rising, if we go back a couple of years to when the request started, there was actually a petition raised in the area with, I think it was nearly 450 signatures.
Council is ready to move, with two preferred sites. The first is this piece of land in Haydenbrook Drive in Wood Rising. The other is this site on the corner of Bay Road and Quigley Road in Bolton Point. After final assessments, it's hoped the project will be underway early next year. Meantime, Council has also prepared a plan for new facilities to be built at the North Power Hunter Sports Centre.
And it included facilities like extension of the existing building to include aerobics and gym space, an additional building for indoor court space for basketball or volleyball, netball. Possibility on the site could also include an aquatic centre.
But he says funding and approval still needs to be given by Council for the developments. Any developments of the North Power Hunter Sports Centre will be on a stage-by-stage process, and Council say it could take up to 25 years to build all facilities in the recent plan. Eloise Gentle, NBN News.
According to the Hunter Business Chamber, the cost of Qantas flights from Newcastle Airport is now beyond the reach of the average traveller.
I think it's very disappointing that Qantas appears to be taking advantage of the lack of competition in the area, and I think that's a terrible indictment on Qantas themselves and for our region.
With Qantas, a return trip between Sydney and Brisbane is $387, but from Williamtown it's $680. Fares from Sydney to Melbourne are just $184, but Newcastle to Melbourne it's $649. Qantas argues the most a fare has increased since it took over Impulse in April last year has been $10, arguing Sydney Airport offers better economies of scale. It all comes at a time of major upheaval at Newcastle Airport. Freedom Air recently pulling the plug on its international service to Auckland. And then 2 days ago, Qantas announces it's scrapping 35 of its weekly return services to and from Sydney. On Monday, Aero Pelican stepped in, offering 26 return flights a week from Williamtown to Sydney, in readiness for sister company Horizon to take over those routes in mid-September.
I think when Horizon get established fully at Newcastle Airport, they will look at other routes,
which hopefully will see prices drop. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
lots of hard work, and I never drank and I never smoked.
After forcing their way into 8th place, the Dragons will be keen to knock off the reigning premiers tonight. Coach Andrew Farah says his plan involves singling out the red and blue numbers 7 and 9.
Obviously, when you talk of the Knights, you think of Johns, Baduras. I don't think you can go out there and say you're going to stop them because they're too good a players. I think you talk about limiting their opportunities and limiting the space they can work in.
Coach Hagan says his boys will be ready.
You know, they do play well against us here and probably down there, to be honest, so that they always generate good games, and I would expect them to come here full of confidence on the back of their last few games.
John Morris won't take the field tonight after straining his calf. He'll be replaced by Tamana Tahu.
You know, it's a Friday night game and looking forward to playing against St George because I wanted to play last week on Sunday, but I was a little bit sore, so yeah, just looking forward to this week.
Meantime, in the Newcastle Rugby League this weekend, Macquarie, Maitland and Souths are all at home tomorrow, while the Northern Blues and Wests host the action on Sunday. In the NBN Soccer League, Lakes meet Hamilton tomorrow, and on Sunday, Western Workers take on South Cardiff, with Maitland, Broadmeadow and Edgeworth all hosting home games.
Even before sealing the match against St George Illawarra, Adam Woolnough was having a big year by any young footballer's standards. The 20-year-old's broken through for 8 first-grade appearances and earned New South Wales resident selection, but he knows he probably won't have much choice but to make way for Matt Parsons this week.
Yeah, well, he's older and bigger than me, so he tells me what to do.
Kurt Gidley's star, meantime, also continues to rise, putting in a man-of-the-match performance, replacing Sean Rudder at 5'8" against no less than Trent Barrett.
Yeah, it was a surprise. It was a good way to top the night off with the man of the match, but I think there's plenty of blokes out there who could have got it.
Whether the modest youngster stays put and whether Matthew Johns awaits him this Sunday remains to be seen. Ongoing problems with a pinched nerve for the Sharks' number 6 has put a second battle of the brothers in doubt, but the Knights are still expecting a far tougher team than the one they faced earlier this season.
I don't think it'll be easy at all, especially with Kamali playing really well. Stevens will be back, so it'll be another tough game.
I think it might be a bit different story to last time, but hopefully with the same sort of result.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
This vandal, caught spraying his tag or spray paint signature at a rail corridor near Waratah this afternoon, is believed to belong to one of a dozen of graffiti gangs defacing public property every day.
We're looking at children between as young as 12 years old up to adults as old as 34.
Graffiti artists are even able to show off their illegal and legal work on an internet site, which police say is sponsored by a Newcastle music company which sells spray cans. But surveillance of online boasting at such sites and filming tags has helped police catch 75 offenders since September last year. As for a solution, some want councils to allocate more legal walls, like these here at Newcastle Skate Park, as an outlet for graffiti artists. But others are pushing for tougher penalties. Those found guilty face a $2,000 fine or 6 months imprisonment, and offenders are often made to clean up graffiti. But some believe it's still no deterrent. Peter Tesherin owns Tesherin Engineering. Last night, for the second time in 2 months, his Carrington headquarters was attacked by vandals, leaving him $10,000 out of pocket for repainting and sign writing.
I'd like them to have their own clothes, house, dog, car sprayed, and then see how much it costs them to get it repaired.
Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
While activities like painting and playing help ignite the imaginations of preschoolers, reading is still considered one of the best ways to inspire a child's learning. As part of Speech Pathology Week, an expert in the development of language skills is meeting with parents at early childhood centres throughout Newcastle.
The focus of today is to use reading to help develop language. Reading's an important part of language, developing early literacy skills, and we're trying to focus here on partnerships with preschools to get that message across to parents.
Some youngsters look like they couldn't wait to start reading themselves, even if the material wasn't that interesting. Catherine Gann says parents should find the time to read to their children at least once a day, as it could make them better communicators later in life.
They may not necessarily understand what the words mean or what the words say, but it's more about the relationship with the parent, hearing the words, their parent's voice, talking about pictures, and not so much at this age, the words themselves.
And if these faces are anything to go by, it seems good old story time can still compete with modern distractions like television. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Second at 3 under at the start of the day's play, Sydney's Danny Vera must have been wondering what he'd done wrong when he posted a double and triple bogey in the first 3 holes. The reigning champion got one back at the par 5 16th to finish with a 76. And luckily for him, Belmont's Kurt Lynn did the same after shooting a 67 the day before. Having finished the first round sharing third, Tamworth's Nathan Snell and Sydney's Richard Stokes both had rounds they'd rather forget to drop back. And while the putts weren't falling for Joel McDougall, both he and fellow Horizons trainee pro Luke Mager made the cut, with the field of almost 115 halved for the final 2 days.
We've got the top interstate guys here for the week, as well as
our New South Wales trainees, who have got a few of them up there. So yeah, we've got a really strong field.
Previously held at Port Kembla, the State Trainee Championship has made Horizons home for the next 3 years, with $30,000 on the line come Friday. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Tomorrow morning brings the safe harbour remaining crew on the British warship have craved since HMS Nottingham ran aground off Lord Howe Island on July 7. Unlike this afternoon's arrival in the port, salvage tugs will tow the destroyer to the BHP wharves stern first for munitions, stores and fuel to be offloaded. The operation will have several impacts, including disrupting demolition of the former steelworks for around 12 days. Harbour users will also have to steer clear once the Nottingham passes Nobbies at 10 tomorrow morning.
Water Police and ourselves will be out there to make sure that people do stay away. It's going to be an intricate manoeuvre, and we really do ask people to stay well clear and out of the road.
John Fisher says the order remains effective until the destroyer departs.
Enforcing a 400-metre exclusion zone around the vessel, and we're asking all boat owners and masters of vessels to stay well clear.
On the eve of the Nottingham's arrival, there are still some concerns about the condition of the vessel's munitions. Newcastle Council has written to Defence Minister Robert Hill seeking a further assurance that they pose no threat. This afternoon, the city was still waiting for a response. Gary Blair, NBN News. Bankstown golfer Mitchell Brown celebrated his 17th birthday yesterday by shooting an even par 71 in the amateur tournament. He was back in the hunt today alongside today's leader Lucas Bates, who was showing plenty of form. Nick Flanagan from Belmont is also near the top of the field of 150 golfers in this year's 51st Alexander tournament. Outstanding this morning was Mitchell Cook from the Waratah Club, who shot 5 under on the front nine, but by the 18th he'd eroded that lead to finish disappointed at 1 over. The tournament, named after the club's longest-serving president, winds up tomorrow. At Carl Oval, the under-8s played the curtain raiser, with Valentine's Dylan Hewson scoring a flamboyant try over Windale. When the big fellas hit the field, Lakes turned it on over Maitland, with number 8 Glenn Agland first to cross. Minutes later, it was Lakes again, with Matty Lang getting home. Maitland launched a fight back, with Dave Anderson finishing off. But it was Lakes at the end of the day, 52 points to Maitland's 20.
The behaviour of weekend revellers in Newcastle's inner city entertainment zone has been under scrutiny for years. Business wants police to curb vandalism. The force has held crackdowns, but those previous efforts may pale into insignificance when Newcastle receives a call from Operation Viking.
Commissioner Moroney will be rolling these out across the state in areas where there are recognised crime hotspots.
Viking involves hundreds of police saturating specific areas in an effort to clamp down on antisocial behaviour and hooliganism. Drink drivers, drug dealers and even car enthusiasts who don't comply with road rules are expected to be targeted. But will a one-off, one-night blitz make any difference in the long-term reduction of crime? Parliamentary Secretary for the Police Minister and Newcastle MP Bryce Gaudry thinks it will.
From that, of course, there'll be a lot more work for the local police, following up on either the arrests or the intelligence that's gathered by that Viking task force.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Iraq fired a warning shot to the federal government to change its attitude when it cancelled an order of 500,000 tonnes of wheat 2 weeks ago. But according to Iraqi officials, the Howard government has continued its hostile stance against their country. In retaliation, Iraq has now threatened to ban all Australian wheat imports.
We're one of the first nations to deal with Iraq after the Gulf War, and it's very disappointing the stance that the Iraqi government has taken in relation to wheat exports out of Australia.
Iraq is one of the country's biggest wheat markets, worth $700 million a year. The Grains Council of Australia is alarmed at the position the federal government is taking against Iraq and is calling on it to be more diplomatic.
We would hope that they'd be more sensitive in the future in the comments they're making, because at the end of the day, it's the Australian wheat producer that's being hurt out of this, and the innocent Iraqi people that are not going to get the supplies of wheat that they need.
If Iraq does place sanctions on Australian wheat, the industry will have little trouble finding other export markets in the short term due to a lack of global supply. However, Mr Perrott says the need for long-term stable markets like Iraq are crucial. Simone Cobb, NBN News.